Welcome to Free Fall from Nerve, students, part 2 of our book by Eva Holland. And as you know, in this most exciting chapter, she goes skydiving, hoping to achieve a kind of reckoning with her fear. Now, a couple of you have gone skydiving, I know. I have not, but stay tuned for my story. Right now, I have my husband, Kevin, with us, and we are at the Watsonville Municipal Airport with all these small planes around us to get into the mood to interview Kevin about his experience skydiving as a far younger man, straight out of college. So, Kevin, welcome. Go ahead and get into the frame here, and we will hear your experience. So these are my English 1A students at Cabrillo, and they would love to hear about, first of all, why you decided to go skydiving in the first place.
So I decided, I was about 21 years old, and I decided to go skydiving because I had just graduated from college, and for the first time in my life, practically, September came along and I wasn't in school, and that was a radical change for me. So I decided I wanted to do something a little bit radical myself and move myself into a different period of my life, and I figured skydiving would be the way to do that, or one way to do it anyway.
Okay, so tell us about the experience itself and what it was like.
Terrifying, absolutely terrifying. From start to finish, every single thing that could go wrong went wrong. From the plane not starting while we were on the ground, and finally they got it going and we got into the air, and my goggles didn't fit correctly, so as soon as we got into free fall, every time I looked up at the videographer, the goggles would float up my face, kind of like this, and blind me. I had an instructor strapped to my back who kept waving at me when the altimeter was showing that we were getting into the red zone, which was too close to the ground, but I was too busy fiddling with my goggles. And so he actually had to pull the cord. And then when we got most of the way down to the ground, the instructor noticed that there was no wind to land with, which you absolutely need some kind of wind to use as a braking maneuver, and so when I pulled really hard on the cords, nothing happened, and I hit the ground very, very hard with the instructor on my back, got a face full of scrapes, yeah, that was my experience. It was pretty scary all the way from start to finish.
From what I understand, you scraped up your glasses.
Scraped my glasses, scraped my watch, scraped everything I could scrape, yes.
And I understand the instructor had some colorful words when the wind wasn't.
Oh, yeah. So we were about 100 feet off the ground, and he was busy giving me his little in-flight pep talk, saying, "Okay, Kevin, you can do this, you can do this, you got it, you got it, you got it, you can do this. Oh, shit." And I said, "What?" And he said, "Oh, nothing. Okay, Kevin, all right, you can do this, you can do this." And that was the moment that he noticed that the windsock had drooped down to nothing, which was a bad sign, right? It meant our landing was going to be rough. But he didn't want to tell me that mid-flight, so...
Okay. And then what do you feel you got out of the experience? And did it have an impact, sorry for the pun, on your life from that point on?
It was definitely an imprinting experience. In the hours after that, I was so flooded with adrenaline, and I really felt like my anchors were gone. I mean, if I had run into a military recruiter right then, I probably would have ended up joining the Army, or a cult or something. I mean, I'm just glad that it was just me going home. But what it did was the next day I sort of realized that I caught that my slate was blank a little bit, and I realized that I could put anything onto it that I wanted to, and that my first year out of college, my education was now my own responsibility. And so I went to a used bookstore and bought a stack of books, this tall, And some of the and randomly, I was letting the universe decide my education for me in a way. And some of the books in there really changed the course of my life. I actually, some of the theory that I found by Richard Buckminster Fuller changed my life forever, really. I don't know if I should be more specific about that.
Sure.
But during that time, I realized that, there wasn't a whole lot that I couldn't do. And I read about Buckminster Fuller, very famous inventor, a brilliant man, and he had stopped speaking for a year in 1929 to break his own semantic anchors. And I at first thought, well, I could never do anything like that. And then I realized, wait a minute, I just jumped out of a plane and everything that could go wrong went wrong, except for the one thing that went right, which was I survived. And I could do this again. And eventually I ended up going on a year-long vow of silence in my own exploration of language, the way Bucky Fuller did. And it took that skydiving to really sort of set me on that path.
Thank you, Kevin.